Hey everyone, this is Rhonda Karen here with welcome to Wellbeing and Confidence. Now, just a quick recap. Hope everyone can hear me and see me okay. Just a quick recap of what we've been doing over the past couple of weeks. We've been looking at confidence and well-being and discussed how it's actually an emotional issue. And once we can deal with the emotional issue, then we can, feel more confident and increase our well-being. We've looked at things like our posture, how our posture changes how we feel, and so we can use that to project more confidence and to actually feel more confident. We've talked about affirmations and how achievement actually increases our confidence and increases our well-being. And so from there we went on to look at a bit about goals and how we can actually achieve them. Not just setting goals, but achieving them so that we can actually get the benefit from them. So today, and this is stop work, that's better. Today what we want to deal with is we want to go on to our beliefs. Now, what is a belief? A belief is a thought or an idea that we have that we are convinced is true. It doesn't mean it's actually true. We just actually are convinced that what we think or this idea is the actual truth. There's a certain amount of certainty, and so we accept it as our truth. Now, belief is important with our confidence because our confidence is actually in a direct result of the beliefs that we hold about ourselves. But where do most beliefs come from? We've spoken about this before. Hi Kalisha, hi Taz. We've spoken about this before, about how our beliefs tend to start from before the age of 7. We don't really know anything, so we're getting information from people around us, their facial expression, their words, what they're teaching us. So we'll get it from parents, friends, siblings, school, and also our own experiences, our interpretation of them. If we see somebody's face expression, we can interpret it a specific way, whereas someone else might interpret it in a different way. So those are the foundational beliefs. We pick up other beliefs as we go along throughout life, but those ones are the foundation, and usually the ones that we pick up later on in life go through those filters. And so those foundational initial beliefs are so important because all the other beliefs kind of stem from that one. But when you think about it, if most of the beliefs that you are running at any age stems from before the age of 7, it's coming from the understanding and the knowledge of someone who's practically a toddler. And so what worked then, or what was appropriate then, isn't appropriate now. So, for example, if I was to give you £1 million, yes, you'd be happy. But what would you actually do with it? Take a moment right now and just think to yourself what you would do with £1 million. What would you buy? How would you spend it? Would you spend it all at once? Would you spend a little bit, save some, invest some? Would you buy a house? Would you buy a car? What would you do with £1 million right now? Hoping that background noise has stopped. What would you do with £1 million? And now go back and imagine how you was when you were 7 years old. At 7 years old, what would you have done with that money? What would you have bought with £1 million at age 7? Would it be the same things that you buy today? I don't think so. You wouldn't be buying things like houses. You wouldn't be thinking about investments and long-term savings. You wouldn't be even thinking about a car. You know, things like, what you would be thinking about is maybe sweets and toys and just lots of spending. So right now, what you would choose is something totally different from what you would choose at 7 years old. And so what you need to do is to realize that some of your beliefs are coming from that 7-year-old, and it's not what you want today. So you've got to make sure that you can override what you're doing to what your beliefs are with actually what you want now. But how do we create these? Like I've said, we create them through through our own experiences, what we learned, what we interpret ourselves from what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. We create beliefs from our own logic. We put things together. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? If we hear it from a trusted source, somebody we trust and think we can rely on, we're more likely to believe it. There's also the first come, first serve basis. Whereas if you've got no other conflicting information there, and this is the first information that's coming, you're more than likely to accept it because you've got no knowledge of anything that says, no, it's not true. Another way is repetition. Repetition. If you go to school, one of the ways of learning is, if you're doing times tables, for example, you do it over and over and over again. And finally, we learn through proof. You hear something, somebody proves it to you, it's proven that it's true, it's proven that it's right and correct. We do this all the time with science. The more proof we have, the more certain we are that the idea is the truth. And because we're certain, we form a belief. So those are the things, those are how your beliefs are created. Now, what we want to really focus on here is self-belief. You've got different types of beliefs. You've got your self-belief, you've got world belief, you've got beliefs about other people, beliefs about interaction, but we want to focus in on self-belief because it's what you actually think about yourself that is going to determine how much confidence you have and your well-being. So we have beliefs about our abilities, our place in the world, you know, where we belong. We have beliefs that form our identity, what opportunities are available to us, what we deserve, and other things. So it's a lot of beliefs that if we can look at and start to manipulate them and get them to match up with who we are today, not who we was at 7 years old or 6 or 5, however old we was at the time that we got that foundational belief, then that will help us to get more in line with the goals that we want to achieve and to increase our confidence. Now, the self-belief is made up of lots of little things that are called the self-concept. Now, the self-concept is how you see yourself, how good you are as a son or a daughter, how you are as a brother or sister, how good of a learner you are, how good of a worker you are, an employee, an employer, how likable you are. It's all those little things that come together. How good you are at making people laugh, how good you are at maths, being a parent, making friends, how good looking you are, how well you dress. All of those things, they make up a big picture. It's like little jigsaw puzzles, and all the jigsaw puzzles make up this big picture which we call self-belief. And from that self-belief comes our confidence. So if we can adjust the levels of the small little pieces, then the overall picture will totally change. But how can we start to increase our self-concept? Big question. As I said, start to improve those little pieces of the jigsaw. Now, last week I spoke about setting goals and achieving goals, and that is one of the fastest ways to increase our self-concept. Because when you do something and you do it at a certain level, you start to believe that's what you can do. Okay, if you played golf, for example, and it took you 10 times, if you played mini golf and it took you 10 times to hit the ball in the hole, that's how good you're going to think you are. And so 6 months down the line, if someone says, how good are you? You'll be like, well, not too bad. It took me 10 times. Well, not too good. It took me 10 times to get it into the hole. But if you keep practicing and achieve and set a goal for getting it in the goal in 3 shots instead of 10, and you keep practicing and achieve it and keep at that level, you're going to start to feel better about your ability. And when you feel better about your ability, you start to feel better about yourself. And that's one area. You keep doing that in loads of little areas, and your overall confidence, your self-esteem, your self-belief increases. The more that you can do and provide yourself with proof that you are good enough, then the faster you increase your self-esteem. Because when we do something that we feel is, when there's an area that we feel we're not actually that good in, if someone asks us about it, we can quickly and easily point to examples. Oh, well, I went to such and such and I failed. I did this wrong. I did that wrong. We can always go back and get the proof of what we did wrong or what we failed at, the mistakes that we made. But we don't pay attention to gathering all of the information, all of the memories of what we did that was good. Now, if we could gather those memories and replay them, remember how I said that beliefs can be created through repetition? Think about it. When you worry, something might go wrong. How often do you worry? Next week you're planning to do something, and you're worried that that you might fail. You might worry every single day. You might worry for hours at a time every single day. And so it's not a surprise when you're not confident in doing that, because you've replayed that worry, you've repeated it and repeated it and repeated it so often in your head that you've actually believed that you failed before you've even given it a try. So how about we flip that on its head, and instead of repeating the worry, how about we start to think of times when we have succeeded? Sometimes we have little boxes, or we tell people to write it down on a piece of paper and keep it, or in the boxes we have papers that we put in and write down on there the things that we do well, the things that we succeed in, and then we go back once a week, maybe, hopefully sometimes more if we can, and take a look at them, start to feed our mind with the idea, with the thought that we can achieve more, we can do more. So that's something that you can do for the next week. If you can, anything that you do that's a success, even if it's something small. The thing is with us, we We seem to take things that we do well for granted. We don't really appreciate just how good we are at something because we tend to think that everybody can do it. But just start to notice the little things. If you cooked a nice meal, write it down. If you got dressed and looked nice, write it down. You think you look nice, write it down. If you've put up done some decorating, write it down. And just start to remind yourself of the little things that you've done and you've done well. And then once you've started to write it down, see if you can write down at least 3 things every day. 3 things that you've done that are well. And if you can write that down, then what will happen at the end of the week, you take a look, read through all of it, you'll probably be a bit overwhelmed with just how much you've done that's really positive, and you'll start to realize how many things that you actually do that are successful, that are good, and that are better than you first realized. And instead of using the time to worry, use the time to go over the things that you've done. Sit back, remember them, recall them, and relive that experience. How do you feel about it? Does it feel really good? Sit down, keep going over it again and again, and that will start to increase your self-confidence really, really quickly. And try to reduce the amount of time that you spend worrying. If you've got something, obviously you would want to do something about it. If you've got a problem, do something, take action, maybe write down what the problem is, sit down, work out a solution, and then decide. Once you've got a solution written down, there's no need to worry. And stop yourself from worrying. Stop yourself from spending time repeating that in your head, so that you've got, they say that the more you do things, the easier it is for the brain to go and access that information. And so if you're worrying so much, the brain has so easy access to that information, but then you spend so little time congratulating and being proud of yourself. When you need that information, it's harder to find. It's like behind cobwebs and closed doors and whatever in your brain. But the worry is right there. All the things that you've done and messed up with, it's right there, right in front of your face. And so what we're trying to do now is to swap those around, so that your go-to, the one that's right in the forefront of your brain, is saying, I can do this. Saying, I feel I'm at a level where I'm competent at this. I'm confident in my ability at this. I believe this good thing about me is true. And we do that through repetition and through getting proof. And that's one of the things that you can do to begin to change your identity, how you see yourself and who you are in relation to things, because everything goes through you. So how you see yourself determines exactly how you perform, what outcome you get, what results you get, and how much you actually enjoy it or not. Now, if we realize that our thoughts are coming from the point of view of a 7-year-old, and our beliefs and everything that we do is actually being filtered through the opinion of someone that is less than 7, you know that it's a total what's the word, it's not contaminated, but it's not a true representation of who you are today. Because since the age of 7, you've grown massively, and I don't mean in height. I mean in your knowledge, in your wisdom, in your understanding, in your abilities. You are a completely different person to who you could have even imagined you'd be at the age of 7. And so what I want you to do is to try to, when you hear a negative voice in your head, try to separate yourself. Start to separate who you are with what the voice is saying. Now, one of the ways we can do this is by giving the voice a name, which sounds weird, it sounds crazy, but by giving it a name, all of a sudden we have a different relationship, because it's not me anymore. It's been somebody speaking to me. Some of those things that the voices in our heads say to us, we would never allow other people, another person, to say and accept that as the truth. We wouldn't allow it, and we wouldn't allow someone to put us down so much and then just agree with them. We would disagree. We would prove them wrong. Well, now this child, you know it's a child. How many 7-year-olds do you know? Or younger? How seriously can you take the advice and information if you believe it's coming from a 7-year-old? So that's just one thing to think about. Imagine taking a 7-year-old child's advice. I mean, I've got a niece that's, well, she's 8 now, and she's pretty bright for her age, but I'm still not going to take her advice. You know, sometimes maybe if it's about having fun, because you just can't beat kids when it comes to having fun. So yes, I will take her advice about that. But do you think that a 7-year-old knows more than you about personality, about what it takes for it to achieve in the workplace, about what's good and what's not good about people? No, you know better. And so this is what I want you to start challenging your internal voice. I want you to start challenging what you've been told. Really start to dig in, because sometimes when you begin to question the information that your brain's telling you, you realize it's actually not very logical. Not compared to the information that you know now. When you compare it to the information you know age 7, yes, makes sense. But now you know better. You need to upgrade your beliefs so that it matches who you are now. You're smarter than that. One of the major issues that I see coming up over and over again, both in my group clients and the individual clients, is people feeling that they're not good enough. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever thought, I'm not good enough? Maybe you want to do something and you, oh, I'm not good enough for that. You see a job that you'd love to do. I'm not good enough for that. You see a group of people that you'd love to just get to know and or do an activity with them, but you don't, because you just feel you're not good enough. That is one of the major obstacles that people face. And I get to hear it because people come to me to help them to get over it. But it's not really something that we discuss as a society. So we tend to start to think that it's mainly down to us. It's mainly us. Everyone else seems so put together, so well organized, so perfect. There must be something wrong with us. But that's not the case. Most people, no matter what level of success, I've worked with people that earn hundreds of thousands a year, and they feel exactly the same, even with their achievements, even with their well, some have got millions, but mainly hundreds of thousands per year. They don't feel good enough. And so first I want you to get a pen and paper, and if you could list all the ways that you feel that you are not good enough. If you need to come back, get a pen and paper and come back and watch this again. Do this exercise. Ask yourself, if I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough for what? Or for whom? Because you're not good enough compared to what or who? Yeah? Does that make sense? What are you not good enough for? Start to really see what you're actually doing. Start to see what the problem is, what the issue is, and work it out. Start getting a clear idea of what your mind is actually connecting or comparing you to. Now, for an example, I had a client who, obviously I've been given permission to share this, who thought that they wasn't good enough in the eyes of God, for example. And she went around and all the time she was just feeling so down on herself and rejected a lot of things, didn't do a lot of things. She was in conflict. She wanted things but couldn't do them because she didn't feel that she was good enough. And as she went through this exercise, she noted down and she realized, okay, she was putting herself down as not good enough in the eyes of God. So I asked her then to note down what would be good enough on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is it's definitely not good enough, and 10 is okay, that's perfect. So she did a list, and it had things like loving other people, using her gifts that she got from God fully, being the best person that she could be every day, her attitude, appreciating the beauty in things. And she started off writing down out of 10 how high or low she thought that she was doing. And what she noticed was exactly which areas that in order to feel good enough, like she's doing a good enough job as a human, she could see the exact areas where she could improve. And that's what I want you to do. Get your list. When you've identified what you think, what or whom you're comparing yourself to, just list out what your score, your current score is out of 10. How do you rate? And then you can see which areas you can improve to bring the overall score higher. If you can if you can work on one bit at a time, you will feel good enough within yourself. You might also notice that some of the things that you write down, don't judge them at first. Just write it down, whatever comes to mind. Because remember, some of these things are a 7-year-old's opinion, a 5-year-old's opinion. So just write them down. And after you've written them down and seen them, you might notice that these things don't apply, or they're not logical, so then you can take them off the list, you can reject them. And just by doing that, again, your overall feeling of whether or not you're good enough increases. Another thing that we did with this particular person was to get her to visualize where she wanted to be What would be the ideal number? I mean, yes, obviously the ideal would be 10 out of 10 for everything. But a more realistic number where she would feel like she was enough. Not perfect, just enough. And some things where she was a 2 out of 10, she thought, well, if I'm a 6 out of 10, then I would feel that was enough. So we got her to start to visualize what it would feel like once she was a 6 out of 10. Now this is a powerful exercise. When you bring in your feelings and your emotions, it creates a powerful experience that you can repeat over and over again. Remember we said about repetition? Well, that repetition will help you to start to see yourself. If you can't even see yourself as what you want, as the person doing what you want, having what you want, then you can't move towards it. You first got to be able to see, and when I say see, I mean experience yourself as that person, as that type of person that has that. So doing this exercise allows you to experience it, and then now you know, okay, this is what I'm looking to actually achieve. Make sense? Okay. I'll have a quick drink. Okay. Now, when we was going through the elements last week for goal setting, another one was strategy directed. Now, that one's self-explanatory. You need to have a plan. We're going somewhere, we need to have a plan, take the steps, make the steps to get there. So everyone knows how to make some sort of a plan. Obviously, as much as I would like to go through all the steps here, there just isn't enough time. I mean, I'm trying to squeeze a couple of months course into very short form. So figure out how to do a little strategy, what you want, what it's going to give you, how you can get there from where you are now. Okay. The other bit that I wanted to speak to you about today is about the other element, which is action oriented. And that is one of today's biggest problems. Before people even start, they won't take action. And if we don't start to do something, those beliefs that you've got today that are holding you back, that are making you feel bad, they're going to stay with you. They've been with you from your how old? From you're a toddler. They're not just going to magically disappear. You've got to do something about it. Some beliefs will, over time, because of repetition, unknowingly will change. But this is about you taking the situation into your own hands. This is about you taking control. Now you can sit back and just hope that some point in your life that this situation's going to change. This belief that's stopping you will change. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Or you can take the steps that's been given and actually make that change in your life. A lot of people, they will get the information, they will have step-by-step strategy of what to do, they will have all the information but won't take action, and then wonder why there's no change. Well, if you're doing something and it's not working, yeah, and you decide that you're not going to do something different, then you're not going to get a different result. You've got to put in the commitment to do what it takes to make that change. You've got to be committed to you, and that's one of the major problems. Is we've been brought up in a society that likes to use the word selfish, and anything that you do for yourself, it's seen as selfish. So we spend our time trying to do for other people, but we can only do so much unless we invest in ourselves, whether that's time, whether that's money, whether that's energy and effort. Some of the things that we do, you might think are boring. Sometimes even I find it hard to just sit down and think and wonder. But you've got to realize one thing: you are worth it. You are worth putting in the commitment for yourself. And if you don't believe that you're worth it, then even more you need to put in that commitment to yourself to make yourself worth it in your own eyes. You've got to commit to yourself. I hear the excuse all the time: I'm too busy. You're too busy doing things that you don't want to do and give you a result that you don't want to do the things that will give you the result that you want. If you sit back and think about it, that's not logical. It's not logical. We've got to take the first step. We've got to do. And yes, I understand it's scary, because we didn't grow up learning this, and so it's something different from how we were told. But that's because of progress. Science has come with new information. People are sharing their experiences now, and we can learn from them. And what we are learning, and the way that the world is going put together, we're learning that the old ways aren't going to work. Everybody's doing the same thing. We've all been told the same story. We're doing the same thing, but we're expecting a different result. No, that worked in a different time. This is a different time now. You've got to do what works today in order to succeed in today's world. You can't do what was good yesterday and expect to achieve in today's world. Back in the day, we used to walk to the telephone box. We wanted to make a phone call. Go sit there, put in our 10p pieces and make a phone call. How would your life be if you still lived by those standards, those rules, when everybody else is walking around with the mobile phone? Be a lot different. You'll make it life harder for yourself if you stuck to, I'm gonna go and remain in that era where I have to go and find myself a phone box, because you're resisting moving into today's world and today's day. And so we need to take action to change, to stay current, to stay up to date. And that means we need to change us. We need to change our thinking, change our feelings, and change what we're doing. But first of all, if you can change how you think about yourself. I remember Jim Rohn, who's a very famous, he was a very famous motivational speaker. He said you need to work on yourself more than you work on your job. That to me was amazing, because I was always taught, you get up, you go to work, and you work hard. Yeah? And that's how you succeed. Do you know what? That's how it used to be. Now, it's you work hard on yourself and on your job. But the more you work on yourself, the more attractive you are to other people, as in attractive as an employee, attractive as a friend, attractive as a parent, attractive as a child, attractive to as a person to be around. That's by working on yourself. You don't have to accept who you was yesterday is who you're going to be today. If you want better for yourself, be better. Be the better person. Take action. Make that commitment. Ask yourself, what is it that's stopping you? What is it? Because 9 times out of 10, it's either going to be something there, a mental block, or an emotional block. And we've got the tools to get you past that, and so there can be nothing stopping you. You can get out there, you can have a life. I'm not saying life is going to be perfect, but you can experience more of the things that you want, that you need, that will nourish you and make you enjoy your life. And at the same time, you can have more of the tools to help you to deal with the challenges that life will definitely bring. It always does. So, I've given you a few things to do. If you really want to change, make that commitment. Take the notes, start to question, start to see the things that are stopping you, the things that are not working for you. And next week we're going to be looking at how we're going to change those emotions. So, hope you enjoyed it. Please join me next week, but most of all, please do this for you. Go now, bye.